Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you're new here and you're not sure who I am, I'm Douglas Johnson. I'm a ordained minister. I'm a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, non-dual spirituality teacher. I've studied Zen a long time, A Course in Miracles. I'm also certified in Kilavi Inquiries by Scott himself. So I basically talk about and teach about things relating with the spiritual domain, which for me are really things that are concerned with happiness and overall well-being, health, peace, joy. All right, so today I wanted to speak about three aspects of the kind of work that I do. Three ways in which what I teach and what I offer may be able to help you. And so you might think in your own life about which of these relate with where you are on your path or journey. And I don't want to make them sound like they're sequential or that they're completely separate, because that isn't really true. Some of the tools that I might use at one stage or phase may be very relevant at a much later stage or phase. So many of the things that I teach cross these borders, but depending on the individual, depending on the situation, certain tools in general may be more useful at certain stages or phases than at others. So again, I might talk about these as though they're phases or sequential. That's not really how it is, and that may not be how your experience is or was. So just keep that in mind, okay? So I don't want to oversimplify something. But having said that, usually to talk about something in a coherent way, in an easy way, it does help to simplify it. So you'll hear me sort of dumbing everything down and making things as simple as I can, but just keep in mind that the way I'm representing it is not necessarily how it actually is, or may be different from your experience may be different. Okay, so I was counseling somebody the other day, and I was trying to explain to them, and this is someone who has struggled with depression. I've had many people come to me with that, and many younger people are struggling with depression, with anxiety, these types of things. And oftentimes in today's climate, they end up either on some kind of medication, and that's okay. Sometimes that's necessary, but sometimes it actually isn't. A friend of mine who is in medicine says that many times things in modern medicine are overused. So whether that's a prescription drug or a surgery or whatever it is, it's not uncommon for those things, even though sometimes they may be necessary. Okay, so I'm not talking about any particular instance. If you are on a medication and you feel like that is necessary for you and helpful for you, then perfect. Okay, I'm not talking about your situation. But again, as my friend who's a medical professional said, oftentimes this happens in modern medicine, where the old saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, this can be the case for modern doctors. They're given two tools, essentially, drugs and surgery. And drugs and surgery are miracles. They can help with many things, and they can help in places where holistic healing or medicine can't help. But, and this is a big but in my opinion, there are many places where holistic healing and medicine would actually do a better job than drugs or surgery. So that's my opinion. You're welcome to disagree with it. But again, this is not just my opinion. Again, I have friends who are in medicine, doctors, nurses, and they actually agree that there are many instances where a patient would be better served by holistic healing. But the catch is holistic healing always is holistic. And what that's going to mean is lifestyle. Lifestyle. So what do you eat? What do you do? What sorts of choices are you making? How well are you sleeping? Are you meditating? Do you do yoga? Are you exercising? These sorts of things are going to come into play. Okay? So many Americans have grown up with this idea that we should be able to eat whatever we want, whenever we want, however much we want. If we don't like exercising, we shouldn't have to exercise. If we don't like the outdoors, we don't go outdoors. If we don't like socializing, we don't socialize. And we should just be able to go to the doctor to fix whatever's going on with us. So all the things I just named, socializing, meditating, doing yoga, walking outdoors, exercising, eating right, these are things that really are not optional for us as human beings. Now, I don't want to focus too much on that today. It's not the focus of today's talk, but these are things that we can call proper inputs. So the human animal is designed just like if you are a pet owner and you have a dog, right? Your vet might tell you you need to feed your dog certain things, you need to walk your dog. There's certain steps you need to take care of your pet. And you can not do those things, and then your pet is going to suffer and have worse health for it, right? If you feed your dog the wrong things, you can actually kill your dog. So dogs can't eat everything that humans can eat. Well, your body is really not that different. And we tend to cue off of how our body feels. So if our body feels healthy and vibrant and full of energy, then we're probably going to identify with that and we're going to feel better. If our body feels sluggish, if it's full of disease, if we're tired all the time, if we're depressed, if we have anxiety, if we can't sleep right, all of these things, then we're probably going to suffer as a result of that. Now, from my perspective, a lot of these things are just things that can be managed with what I'll call maybe tier 1 tools, things that I call raising your baseline. Now, raising your baseline is very important. When I was young, I would slip into periods of depression. I didn't like exercising, so I didn't. I don't think I ate particularly. Comparatively, I maybe ate relatively well, but I did certainly know a lot more about eating right now than I did back then. I didn't have the worst diet. I've never had obesity or been way overweight, but certainly my diet could have been better. When I was really young, I wasn't meditating, but I've had periods of depression since meditating, and that is not an uncommon experience. Sometimes even deeper depression can be the result of meditative awareness. So I don't want to make meditation sound like a cure-all or a quick fix for something like depression or anxiety. I think it's an essential tool ultimately, but it's one of many. So anyway, when I was young, my baseline was very low, what I'm going to call my baseline, what I'm going to refer to as baseline. So even when I wasn't depressed, I was just anxious. I had low energy. I felt like life was hard and unfair and difficult. It just felt like everything was like pulling teeth. I felt very directionless at a lot of times. And I grew up with, you know, a relatively affluent background. I went to a private school. I grew up in Manhattan. We weren't rich by any means, and my parents really emphasized how we weren't. So it was an interesting experience growing up in, you know, relative affluence, but being told all the time at how little money we had. So that kind of did a number on me as well. But my point is that when I was younger, I really struggled with keeping my baseline up. So this is something that I can help you do. And if you've been watching on my Patreon page, I'm posting a lot of things by other content creators on there. And if you haven't checked out Patreon, I really absolutely suggest that you do that, because I can't post other people's content on my YouTube page, right? There isn't really a way for me to do that. So on Patreon, I actually will post and often comment on other creators' videos. And these creators are, some of them are creators and some of them are doctors and scientists who have published books that I've read. And a lot of those videos are about raising your baseline. So hermetic stress, exercise, getting outdoors in nature, eating right, you know, all these types of things. Socializing is also very, very important for human beings, even if you're an introvert, right? When I was younger, I'm an introvert, or I have a very strong introvertic streak. And when I was younger, I really was like, I don't like people. I don't like many people. I don't want to, you know, see people. And I later, much later in life, learned that I still need to socialize and see people, and I still need that connection. It's just part of being human. So anyway, these are the types of things that I call raising your baseline. Now, if you watch all the videos and you take them, the videos I put on Patreon, I don't personally talk as much about it, the raising your baseline part. But doing yoga, meditating, again, eating right, which is tricky, but eating right basically for me is whole foods. That includes things like, you know, your favorite power bar that's made from whatever. Unless it's like 2 or 3 ingredients, chances are it's still not whole foods. It's still not going to be good for you. There's so much stuff mixed in there. So really whole foods, meaning like simple foods, like 2 or 3 ingredients, or something you made at home on your own. There's a lot more to it. There's certain fats and oils you should try and avoid. Sugar is completely off the table. You should avoid it like the plague. Other things like refined flour, you know, and flour in general, you definitely should try and reduce and minimize and avoid. But again, this isn't my specialty. And so usually I just try and advise people, you know, whole foods. So, you know, fruits, vegetables, and proteins that, you know, maybe come from animals, or if you're a vegan, from other sources. This is harder to do than many people realize. So again, there are many health foods labeled as healthy that are not. They have a lot of sugar in them. They have a lot of bad fats in them. So again, a little bit of education in this direction is a good idea. And if you want some recommendations on, you know, some books to read, things to look at, I can help you with that. This is something that if you watch these videos and you take them to heart, that may be enough for you. But we can also talk one-on-one about your specific situation in a counseling session, and I might be able to point out or make some suggestions, and then we can monitor to see how well that helps you. Honestly, I think many of you are not in a state of anxiety or depression, a lot of people in that state don't seek out somebody like me, even though I actually think I have quite a few tools that could help people, instead of using drugs or something like that. So that's sort of the level one, or what I call raising your baseline. That's something that I can do for you. And it's usually a good idea, if you're going to work with me toward a deeper realization, to first do that. So if you are someone who's struggling with depression, anxiety, things like that, it could be a good idea to just raise that baseline up. And many people who actually work with me in the studios and never come on retreats or do counseling with me or go any deeper, this is where most of those people are. They come to me to learn yoga. That makes them feel a bit better, and that raises their baseline. Now, raising your baseline doesn't just have to be for depression. So, as I said, when I was younger, I wasn't always depressed. I would have periods where I wasn't depressed, but I would have sort of like a low-level anxiety that just kind of hung around all the time. It was like I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. When something went well, I was kind of like, oh, now something bad's going to happen. And I would just, sort of hope and pray that a miracle would happen or something good would happen. And it never would. So again, if you're in that situation, then we can talk about raising your baseline up, some specifics for you that might help with that. But again, general suggestions are, if you're not already doing yoga, start doing yoga. Do more yoga, meaning the postures, asanas, okay? More advanced yogic techniques like breath techniques, pranayams, things like that, meditation, yoga nidra, these can also help as well. Getting outside, again, eating right, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, very, very important. Socializing enough, very, very important, okay? So that's raising your baseline up. So again, if you feel like it's low, like you're not that happy, that you're really struggling, you're running into periods of depression, then we can talk about raising your baseline up. I can make some suggestions. Now, again, these are going to be lifestyle suggestions. It's not going to be a pill. It's not going to be a one thing. It's going to be a big picture. And it might mean changing several things, okay? So this is good if, again, depression, anxiety, or if you're having some illness. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. But many people find healing in these yogic tools that I teach. And so people who've had certain kinds of issues or problems have resolved them. Again, I can't make any promises or guarantees. I can't diagnose anything. But if you feel like yoga might be able to help you with something, then I might be able to help you with instructing you in how to approach that, okay? So that's the level one sort of baseline. Raise your baseline up. And now I said it's a good idea to raise your baseline up before working on the other things. It's not always necessary and it's not always possible. So sometimes people are trying to deal with depression and they end up hitting one of these other two things, right? The enlightenment part or the embodiment part. So let's talk about those next. So the next part or phase or whatever you want to call it, the next thing that I help people with is what I call enlightenment or waking up. So this is the classic sort of aha moment that people read about when they read about Eckhart Tolle, or they read Zen stories, or they hear about Satori or Kensho, these experiences, mystical experiences, waking up, enlightenment. So this is something that I've helped many, many people with. We're in a day and age where I think many people are on the verge of waking up, or some people who come to me already have quite a bit of awakeness. It's not an all or nothing thing. Sometimes people can kind of have an awakening moment or moments, and then things can close back up. And that often has to do with the third thing I want to talk about, which is called embodiment today. But right now we're going to talk a little bit about enlightenment. So enlightenment is, called waking up because for many people, when they really have a legitimate and deep awakening, the way they saw things before their awakening is very, very different than the way they see and perceive them after. So if you're wondering, have I woken up? Did I have any kind of awakening? That can be one test. Now, for some people, it's not a moment. It's not an event. For some people, it's a very gradual thing. Maybe you've been studying the Bhagavad Gita, or you've been reading scriptures, or you've been doing yoga for a long time, for decades, and you look back and you just find that who you were, the way that you saw things, perceived things, the judgments you made on people, that's shifted and changed quite a bit. Now again, it's not an all or nothing thing. Our ego can hang on to certain aspects even as many other things change. So just because I have a different perspective today doesn't guarantee that I'm awake, and it also doesn't really tell me how awake I am. So there can still be quite a bit of egoic motivation and the ego making problems for us. Again, a good kind of measure of how awake we are is just how much suffering we're having, especially when things are not going our way. Okay, that's a really good test when things are not, the world is not cooperating, it's not going our way. It's very easy to think I'm not suffering if I'm living on the beach and walking on the sand, and it can be easier to kind of forget my woes. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are many people who live on beaches and walk on the sand every day who are suffering. So. But it might be a little easier to maintain the illusion that, I don't have any problems if I'm waking up to that. So enlightenment is usually, and again, I'm not going to, lay down any laws here, so I'm not going to say this is an absolute, but for most people, enlightenment happens before embodiment does. Okay, so embodiment is the most overlooked step. I'd say in order, these are sort of, you're getting more and more esoteric, you're getting more and more specialized, you're probably working more and more with a teacher or a facilitator as you go deeper with these things, okay? So again, the first stage, which is raising the baseline, I teach hundreds of students, I have taught thousands of students yoga over the years, right? I teach hundreds probably every week. So this is what most people are looking for. This is what they understand. Like, I feel bad, I feel poorly, I'm unhealthy. Like yoga can help me feel a little bit better. The enlightenment part, some people are aware of this aspect of spirituality and spiritual teaching, that it's possible to have a mystical experience, a transcendent experience, an experience of oneness, or experience beyond the boundaries of our own body-mind. So that's an enlightenment experience. And I'd say, there's a fair number, it's not most people, but there's a fair number of people who I have worked with over the years who've come on retreats or worked with me individually who've had that kind of experience and are aware of that kind of experience. And some of you watching this video have had that kind of experience. And then the embodiment part is really the not talked about part of this whole journey. And it's the you might say, the most dark. It's the least understood, even by teachers who are enlightened. There are teachers who are enlightened who are not fully embodied. And again, embodiment is also not an all or nothing thing. So somebody can be, embodied to an extent, but still have areas where there's unconsciousness and there is conditioning that is driving them that they may be unaware of. So embodiment is often where inquiry and yoga nidra really come in. Meditation, inquiry, yoga nidra, and then working with a sort of a teacher one-on-one really comes into play. So I would say with the stage 1, raising your baseline, you're talking a lot about what I'll call outer yoga, which is postures, breathing, things that you can see very often. What are you eating? Diet. If, again, you may think, why is a yoga teacher talking about diet? Well, actually, if you read the old scriptures, they do talk about diet in there. So it's not unheard of. It's not completely out of the realm. Diet affects our health, and our health affects our spirituality, you might say. So it's relevant. Okay, again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to eat. I don't have the tools for testing that. We're all different to a degree, but no one needs sucrose or fructose, right? You just don't need those to live. Those aren't helping you at all. So, again, if I say never have sugar again and you'll be healthier for it, that's basically a true statement. You really don't need sucrose in your life at all. So those stage 1, if you will, phase 1, raising the baseline, postures, breathing techniques, meditation, again, things like socializing, things like getting outside, walking, hiking, sleeping enough. Those are all kind of external things, right? And then the enlightenment part is the tools are things like meditation, again, yoga nidra, and those things can help with the stage 1 too, but I'd say there's maybe more emphasis, a closer relationship with your teacher, your guide, or whoever you're working with. Maybe, again, taking time to go on retreat, to really dedicate some time and energy to going a little deeper, looking within a little more. And then the embodiment part is things like, again, inquiry. Again, yoga nidra meditation can play a big role there as well. And then probably even a more intimate relationship with a teacher or someone who can help you really dive deep. I've been working with Scott now for the better part of a year. Scott's my inquiry teacher. And one of the things I've seen and learned is it really is helpful to have someone who helps you. So it doesn't have to, some people really don't like this idea of a teacher or something like that. So I'm not attached to that label or term. You can have a friend, you can have whoever, but you need someone who knows what they're doing and can help you systematically look into the unconscious. And just speaking factually, there aren't that many people who know how to do that. So having a girlfriend or a friend who, when you get your feelings hurt, you call up and you complain to them, and they just basically tell you that you're justified in being upset, or you shouldn't be upset, or says, hey, let's go get drinks and you'll feel better. I'm not saying there's no value in that relationship, but that's not what I'm talking about. That isn't really anyone who's going to sort of reinforce the social norms reinforce egoic identity and ideas that the enemy is out there and the good is in here, or the opposite. For some people, they really feel they have a lot of self-loathing. Anyone who's going to reinforce that and not question that is really not someone who's cut out for the type of work I'm talking about, of helping you clean up. So clean up is the embodiment part. It's where we basically go through the unconscious, which means going through the body, and cleaning up the contractions, cleaning up the places where there's still confusion, cleaning up places where conditioning is still dictating how we act and what we can and can't do. And so again, inquiry is really, really important there. Studying one-on-one with a teacher. Meditation can be super, super helpful. Yoga Nidra can help overwrite programs if you start to identify them. So anyway, everybody, I just wanted to sort of lay that out. Hopefully that will be helpful in terms of you understanding this path and this work and how I'm laying out. And you can identify where you are, and if you want to maybe move into another phase or stage of your practice. I'll say this: many people go to their graves without, some people go to their graves without dealing with level 1, right? The raising the baseline. Some people, they struggle with depression their whole life. They struggle with anxiety their whole life. Now, I'm not promising anything. I can't do that. Again, a lot of this is very dependent, and there are people who may have conditions that require medication or really specialized care. But what we find statistically is things like depression are on the rise, especially among young people, and they used to be almost non-existent. So what this tells me is chances are we're just not giving people the right inputs. So again, if you feed your dog and treat your dog the right way, your dog will be healthy and happy. If you don't, you'll have a miserable, sick dog. Many of us do not understand enough basics about what human beings actually need to be happy and healthy, and we're just not doing those things. No one told us. It's not your fault. It's just there's no education about it. There's a lot of information out there, but you have to seek it out. So again, if you want more of that kind of information, please check out my Patreon page. I don't think you even have to pay for it. I try to do everything on a donation basis that I can, including Patreon. So I don't think you have to subscribe, but if you do, you can subscribe for just $1. So it really, $1 a month is really free. So anyway, check that out, because I do try and post stuff that is more stuff related to raising your baseline. If you're not coming to my yoga classes, or even if you are, you can learn some things. You can learn some things from people other than me, or the sources that I learn things from. I will post them there. So many people, again, will go to their grave. Some people go to their grave never raising their baseline up. But many people come to yoga, they don't feel so good. They come to yoga, they feel a bit better, and then that's it. And they have no interest in enlightenment or embodiment or doing more, and that's fine. I really believe you have to be called to do the deeper spiritual work. So if that's all you're interested in, and you come to some classes or you do some breath work with me and that's it, then great, my work is done. Some of you will be interested or find yourself called to go deeper. So again, many of you have been on retreat with me, many of you have done hours of meditation, you've done bandha work, mudra work, and you've woken up. And so again, that's the enlightenment part. Now the question is, even after waking up, enlightenment, and usually it takes a little while. If you just woke up, you're probably in your honeymoon period. But after a few months or years, you might find, I'm strangely still suffering. My relationships are strangely still dysfunctional. I thought all this stuff got fixed with enlightenment. Usually it doesn't. On a rare occasion, someone has both enlightenment and embodiment together. It's very, very rare. And I'd say that even some people who think that's what happened to them, that's not what actually happened to them. There's still some embodiment issues that need to be handled, but the individuals are just not aware of that. So for most people, and again, some of you listening to this who've done deeper work with me, you've woken up and you know that, and you've had those experiences. But there may be areas, very often dealing with close relationships. So that's a good place to look. Do you find yourself suffering at work, with your children, with your parents, with your partner? Do you find a lot of struggle there? That may be an indication of some place where embodiment has not taken place. So the realization, the awakeness, that awareness has not been able to penetrate and enter into that area. And so I'm very grateful to my teacher, Scott Killaby, for teaching me a method, a systematic method for being able to pull up those unconscious thoughts that keep those contractions. And this relates with contractions and sometimes illness and chronic pain, things like that. People who've been working with Scott have been healing these types of things. So it's, again, it might look like stage one is dealing with, just health in the body, but what you find is even embodiment, still you might be dealing with health issues that actually can be resolved through embodiment. So I think health of the body, anxiety, depression, also there too with inquiry. Some people, they wake up and their depression actually can get worse. Their anxiety can get worse, right? Because the embodiment piece is not there. So for some people, once they've woken up, there actually can be almost like a fire drill, like they really need to work on their embodiment because there can be a lot of suffering there. So when we're really, really done, you might say suffering is rare or non-existent. This isn't the same thing as saying pain isn't there or that everything's going to go your way or you're always going to be happy. But what I find is even in moments of sadness, even in moments of challenge, there's an abiding peace, acceptance, and joy. That's my experience, and that seems to be the experience of other people who have done a lot of this work. Am I personally done with all of this? There's no way really of saying. The teachers I respect and know, they never claim to have crossed some finish line. I think any finish line we talk about is just something that we arbitrarily decide. From what I've heard and understood, my own experience is enlightenment can be deepened infinitely. So I sense that in my own life, that there's a continuing growth, development, deepening, that there isn't a stopping. And again, there could be pockets of unconsciousness. It's called unconscious because we're not conscious of it. So as conscious as an individual may be in many parts of her life, there may be areas where she still is unaware, and that's just as true of me as anyone else. So for me, this isn't about, again, crossing a finish line or being perfect or living up to some standard. It is about peace, joy, freedom, love, compassion, being able to experience these things, being able to really enjoy the human life that you've been given. And in my experience, these tools that I want to share with you can absolutely do that. Hopefully this talk will help you figure out maybe where you are, and if you're interested in working with me, where that emphasis might be. So again, if you are someone struggling with depression, anxiety, illness, then maybe we need to focus on raising your baseline. And again, it's not an exclusive thing. I might pick and choose different things. If you feel like I'm relatively healthy, but I'm really interested in deepening my spiritual knowledge, understanding, going deeper, understanding the nature of reality, understanding myself and others better, well, then maybe we work on enlightenment. Okay, we work on waking you up. And then if you feel that you've had that, or you suspect you've had that, I can help you probably confirm that, that at least maybe there's some awakeness there, some awareness there. And then if that's the case, then we can focus on embodiment. And again, there may be some of all of these things in there. So even if I'm working with someone on embodiment, I might still recommend, hey, you should get outside and walk every day. You'll feel better. Because these all work ultimately synergistically. And I really believe as you deepen one aspect or work on one aspect, the others will fall into place much more easily. So if you've dealt with the phase one, raising the baseline part, your enlightenment work and your embodiment work are going to go that much easier. If you have a very, very poor diet, if you're struggling with depression, if your body is ill, I'm not saying you can't wake up and you can't become fully embodied, but it is going to be a struggle, one heck of a struggle. Can you skip enlightenment and just become embodied? Maybe working on embodiment, you can wake up. These are all things that seem like possibilities. I think anything really is possible, but that isn't usually how it happens for people, because without enlightenment, there's too much identification with the ego to separate. You can say separate your identity from these unconscious programs. Usually you're going to cling to them and hold on to them. So something like inquiry, or what I call KI, which is short for Kiloby inquiry, it's not going to work. It just won't work. I can do all the same things, but without some awakeness or awareness there, probably won't work very well. All right, everyone. So thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. And as always, if there's any way that you think I can be a service to you, please reach out. Again, these days I'm trying to operate on a donation basis. Doesn't mean I don't value my time or what I do. I do have a recommended donation. So if I know some people have expressed concern that, well, I don't know what, I should pay him for his time. I'll be happy to tell you what I feel my time is worth. The reason I'm working on a donation basis is, again, I know some people will struggle financially. And so I don't want those people to not have access to my help. So again, I'm happy to make a recommendation of what my usual rate is, what I usually would charge for my services. But if you need help, please don't be afraid to reach out, even if you are struggling financially. I'd love to hear from you guys, like I said, so please say hello. Please comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. That really does help. Thumbs up, commenting, all of those things really, really help. And again, if you'd like to help support me in my teaching, please check out Patreon. That's really probably the best way. Just making a monthly contribution there really, really helps me approach these videos and these talks as part of my work, as part of my just daily work, or something that I can rely on financially, rather than having to go out and teach more yoga classes or do other kind of work. So once again, thank you to all my patrons on Patreon, and for all of you for listening. And until next time, namaste and have a great day.